Welcome, everyone, to the Rod Pedersen Show. I'm Nick Lewis, and this is The Takeover. I'm sitting here with two great football players. Chris, you don't need that yet. You can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, you won't need it for a while, but I'm here with Chris Getzlaf, and Charleston Hughes is sticking around for another hour. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me.
Indeed, no problem. So right before the break, I was talking about you being the Keon killer. I just want to know, man. We used to have some battles. It was last person with the ball, from Dressler making diving catches, Cope making one-handed catches, you making your plays, always over 50-yard touchdowns. How did it feel on your side? Those battles. Like when you knew you were playing us, everybody knew they had to bring their best, especially those playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, you knew that that was the rivalry. I mean, for the majority of my career, it was Calgary all the time. I mean, it's always been built up that Winnipeg is the rivalry because of the big Labor Day, Banjo Bowl Classic. I mean, all that. But, I mean, during my tenure in the CFL and the majority of the years I played with the Riders, I mean, it was Calgary because you were going toe-to-toe with them for playoff seeding to start with, and then you were likely going to see them in the playoffs. So majority of the time in Calgary and the odd one in Regina. So
when you knew that you were going to get so much man-to-man, and I'm talking the Chris Jones days in Calgary, and you knew you were going to get so much man-to-man, and you knew Keon was going to follow you everywhere. Did you like that matchup? Or, did that excite you? Because you put on some wonderful performances.
Yeah, I mean, it was a perfect opportunity as a receiver. I mean, throughout training camp, through all your training, I mean, you're running one-on-ones all the time, and no matter what level you're at, the receiver's going to win most of those battles because it's in their favor. So when we got to line up against Calgary, when they were doing all that man-to-man and zero coverage, I mean, I was essentially, I love Keon. I think he's a good player, and I think he was a great player in the league. But at that point in time, he was considered Calgary's third best DB, and I was getting to line up against him man-to-man every single week. I'm going to like that matchup every single time. I mean, Calgary was dedicating, their two top guys to Fantus and Dressler. So luckily for me, I'm lining up against what would be considered the third best DB at the time, which was heavily in my favor. So I look forward to those games every time.
It used to drive me crazy up the wall, especially as a defensive lineman, because I'm like, when you look at it, especially because both of y'all kind of the same type receiver, because when you think of receiver, you think of speed and fast and quickness. And I used to ask all the DBs, like, how you getting beat by these guys? And then they all say the same thing. They make you play to their speed. They make you play to their level. So when it comes to savviness, both of you guys were real savvy at receiver. So
just fluid. It's always about being fluid in your transition. When you run your corner route, there was no false step. There was nothing. It was coming out fluid. You took your 3-4 hard steps coming out without breaking stride, and that's hard to cover, especially for DB speed turns. The field's so big without any help. It truly gives you the advantage because you gave no shoulder tendencies on what you're going to pose, if you're going to curl or you're going to come back or if you're going to the corner. So I can attest that you were one of the very good, very, very good route runners in this league. And, speaking of Andy, I seen Andy last weekend. Shaking Andy's hands. I don't think people understand, I got big hands. But Andy's hands are a lot bigger than mine. Can you talk about Andy Fantus and, just him, or just talk about the Canadian Air Force, right? Just going back to that time and just thinking about your receiving core, knowing that you were called the Canadian Air Force and going out and doing what y'all did.
Yeah, I think it was pretty cool to have a group that was able to just get a name tag to them. And I think the hugest benefit to it all was that we all kind of came in right around the same time. So, I mean, Andy came in a year before I did, and then Rob came in a year after I did. And then Weston was the American that was just tagged into the Canadian Air Force. But
he's from Bismarck. He's just close enough.
He's close enough. Yeah, that's right. But, I mean, Andy, he's just a special player. I mean, he has that savviness that you were talking about, knows how to get open. I mean, he's not a blazer by any stretch, but you give him that waggle, and he's not slow, that's for sure. So, but his hands, like you were saying,
his hands are huge.
the biggest hands I've ever seen. Like
What is he wearing, like 4 or 5X gloves?
I think it was 4X.
Oh my
I think he was wearing 4X.
You haven't seen this, Charles.
So the claw.
Like, look at this. You see this? These are pretty big. Andy's like this on me. It's pretty fascinating on how big his hands are. And you can understand, like, he would make the catch. Somebody grabbed it on the waist. He put the ball in one hand as he's going down, and he didn't care if anybody came and tried to swipe it out. Like, his hand pretty much wrapped around the whole football.
Right. He was one of those few guys that could break the, unwritten rules of carrying a football because he could grip the whole thing with his whole hand. He used to be able to hold a ruler in between his pinky and his thumb.
Oh, wow.
30-centimeter ruler. He could grip it with his pinky and his thumb.
That is nuts.
I mean,
Shout out to Andy Fenn, too.
Yeah, with the claw.
Hey, man, we're broadcast here today, man. We with Perry Mobile text line. Perry Mobile, your SaskTel authorized dealer, and also the Capital Auto Mall, Universal Collision Center daily poll question: should Charleston have been the MVP or the MOP defensively of the league last year? Andy, so I don't know if you know what we're doing here. This is the takeover. Ex and current players. We have a stacked lineup. We had John Bowman and Damon Allen in the first hour. This hour we got Joaquin Bradley and Ryan Phillips joining us. And I got my hat of goodies over here, Andy, and just want to let you know that or Chris.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I keep calling you Andy. Yeah. I got Andy. Hey, Chris,
Shout
I'm sorry.
out to Andy. The claw.
The claw. Chris, my bad.
Ruler fingers.
I got my little bag of goodies over here. I just put some topics in because I didn't know where I wanted to go today. So the topic I just pulled out, we'll start with you, Charleston. Cowboys versus Bears tonight. Who you got and why?
Oh, I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys. They're the better team. I think the Bears are struggling pretty much.
It's in Chicago.
But they're not playing pretty good right now. And I'm not a believer. Defense hasn't been holding up too good. I think I went with them in the last game they played against who they played last? Might have been Buffalo.
No, Buffalo played Dallas last week.
Okay, so I can't remember who they played against, but I went with them last week and they lost again. So no, Detroit. Played Detroit last. And Detroit ended up winning that game. So it upset me. So I'm 100% going with Dallas.
Going Dallas. What about you, Chris?
I think Dallas. I think Dallas as well. I mean, Chicago's defense, considering how much they're on the field, I think is still a pretty solid defense. I mean, their offense for the majority of the year hasn't been able to move the ball whatsoever. Dallas, I find that their defense plays pretty well against weak offenses. So I think that's going to give them an edge. And, I mean, they have top 3 offense in the league. So I imagine they'll be able to move the ball at least a little bit against them.
Man, I'm a huge Cowboys fan. My friends in Texas try to kick me out of the club because I'm not a Dak fan. I know that there's worse quarterbacks than Dak Prescott. But I believe Dak is best with everyone around him. As athletes, ex-athletes, and current athletes, when I was in Calgary, Huff already told me, you're not going to be the highest paid being here. I was fine with that because I knew my role. I knew I can go in. I knew I was going to ball every year. At what point does Dak really sit back and say, I need Amari, I need Zeke, I need a good defense in order to have a chance to win? Because right now, when you're paying DeMarcus Lawrence over $100, you're paying you're going to have to pay Amari Cooper a lot of money. You're paying Zeke a lot of money. You're paying your O-line a lot of money, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith. At what point does Dak say, I need all this to be the best I can be, and really say, I'll take $25 million instead of saying, I'll take $40 million, to where now you're getting rid of good pieces in order – and I don't think he can do that. What do you think?
I just think in general with that, they don't ask him to be a quarterback. They ask him just don't turn the ball over, manage the game, keep progressing, keep getting first downs, hand the ball off to Zeke. That's all they really ask him to do. They don't ask him to make incredible throws. They don't ask him to throw 30, 40 times a game, 35 times a game. They ask him to throw maybe 20, 25, and just don't turn the ball over. when you got a quarterback that can do that and manage the game well, I mean, you in a good spot as a team because turnovers is what really hurt you.
Yeah. What do you think?
I'm kind of with you on Dak. I do think that he's a good quarterback, but I mean, in the NFL, it's just who's the next guy that's going to get paid, and that's going to be the new highest paid, regardless if they're the best. And I mean, I don't think that he's in the upper echelon of the quarterbacks that are in the NFL right now for a lot of the reasons that you were talking about. So, I mean, I think it would be a mistake to pay him that because it's going to hinder the players around him, like you're talking about, Nick. So, I don't know. I think he's definitely shown flashes of being a pretty amazing quarterback, especially this year. But I can't put my trust in that if you're going to pay him that kind of money, because I think you're going to hinder the rest of the team quite a bit from a salary standpoint.
I say the same thing, man. I say the same thing. It's so crazy being a Cowboy fan because you know what's going to happen. You're headed towards mediocrity. And there's nothing you can do about it by being handicapped because he is one of the top half of the quarterbacks in the league, right? You could get worse. But, you look at a guy like Lincoln Riley. If he comes in, do you take a Jalen Hurts and a Lincoln Riley? And because Jalen and Hurts and Dak look to be pretty much the same to me at this point when Dak was coming out of not Ole Miss, but Mississippi State. But it kind of brings me to my next question. Sean McVay said he's got to stop being dumb and get the ball to Gurley more. The NFL used to be a game about running the ball and field position and defense, and that's how you won games. Now they're throwing the ball all around the field. You have a lot of quarterbacks that are struggling. You see Jared Goff is getting paid a lot of money, and he's struggling. Do you think there's too much passing in the NFL right now for teams to really win games?
Everybody can't be Tom Brady. Everybody can't go into the game, throwing 40, 50 times a game and still winning the game. You have to have a good running back. You have to run the ball. You have to, always put your offense in second and short the best way you can, or third and short the best way you can to get a first down. I was thinking in CFL rules for a second right there, but yeah, NFL. You want to get first downs, and the easiest way to get first down is to get in short yardage. Easiest way to get in short yardage is to run the ball, especially without turning the ball over. If you got a good running back, you can run the ball. You can get in second and short, third and short, and still progress and have a chance to get a first down where you don't have to throw a deep 10-yard, 15-yard throw to get a first down. You're in good shape. Plus, the run sets up the pass. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Chris?
I mean, I think that the game plan should be entirely dictated by who your opponent is. I mean, should you line up every single week and throw the ball 45 times? No, I don't think so, even if your strength is throwing the ball, and vice versa. I don't think that you should be running the ball all the time if you're playing a solid front seven that's going to shut that down, or the game plan could be to expose the back end of that team. So I think it should be more dictated on the opponent and how you attack them each and every game. So obviously your personnel is going to help dictate that, where your strengths are. But run does always set up the pass.
Do you see more, now that you're done, do you see more attacking the team's weakness or using your strength? What do you think is more valuable for a team? Or if you were coaching, what would you really want to do more? Would it be attack the other team's weakness, or would it be to really do what you do well?
Ooh, I guess the best way to attack a team is to expose a team. I just look at, you got to figure out what a team weakness is, what a team strength is. You got to know who their best players are on the field. You got to know where you can open them up at and expose them. That's how I look at it at all times.
Yeah, I think it's got to be kind of a combination, right? Obviously, you're going to have to stick with your strengths the majority of the time. That's how you built your team and how you're trying to attack each game. But looking at the weaknesses of the other team, even if that's not exactly your strength, I still think that you got to take some shots there. I think no one does it better than New England. Yeah. New England will come out and they'll throw the ball 45, 50 times, and then the next game, based on their opponent could be running the ball 25, 30 times. I mean, their coaching just top to bottom is lights out, right?
Yeah, speaking of New England, so they always say they're going to take away your best two options on defense, right? If you got a receiver, they're going to put Stephon Gilmore on him, and he's going to be locked up. He's going to get some help sometimes, but you're not going to know when that is. They're going to do a good job of taking away the running back. Speaking of just the way that they do that, now think about being an offensive coordinator. Do you already game plan your top two guys out because you know that they're going to try to take them away? Or do you still try to game plan and find every way possible to get those guys the ball?
Yeah, I was about to say, I just think you just find every way you can to get them the ball, whether you got to stack them, put them in a bunch, move them around, motion them. You got to find savvy ways to get them the ball. Even if you got to line your receiver up in the backfield, then motion them out just to, screw with the coverage a little bit. You got to do whatever you can to get your guys the ball.
Yeah, I think you have to find ways to take advantage of that matchup, whether it's alignment or motion or switching, making a switch happen, whatever it is. I think that you have to try to find a way to get them the ball. But when you're actually game planning, some of your other shots, might be to your secondary receivers in that case, because that their primary guys or their better cover guys are going to be sucked over to a certain area.
Yeah, and it just goes to show when I remember watching teams when they played the Rams early in this season, they went for it on fourth down a lot. They figured the Rams were going to put up a bunch of points, and they were like, we need to use all four downs to be able to win this game. So they were trying to play within the rules and say, we're going to need to average over 2.5 yards a down to be able to get first downs instead of averaging over 3. So that's something that teams have gone to versus the Rams, but they haven't been able to score very well this year.
Yeah, it seemed like a desperation move to me, but if you got to go for it on all four downs, man, you trying to find ways to win. You trying to use every option, use every coaching decision to actually try to win a game.
Yeah, the Rams offense, it's not the same. It's definitely not the same as it was last year, right? So, they've had a couple different injuries throughout the year, which obviously will cause you to take a little step back. But I don't think teams should be treating it quite that way. Early on in the year, I can understand. They were as potent as it gets last year, so you're kind of predicting a similar outcome.
Yeah.
So you take your opportunities when you got them. But, if you're on your own side of the ball, especially in the NFL, it's pretty tough to go for it on fourth down because you're putting them in a position to score pretty quickly.
Well, we're going to have to take a break there. I'm Nick Lewis. Rod and Darren are in Houston. Yee-haw. And we'll be back. This is the Rod Pedersen Show on Facebook Live and rodpedersen.com.
You're watching Rod Pedersen On Demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.